Hi guys, this is Rabia and you're listening to the Brown Girl Rants. Today is a very special episode because I have a very special guest with me. Please, everyone, welcome Rosie, aka the host of My Intrusive Thoughts. So I'm doing a collab. I'm doing my first ever collab, and it's actually called Pod Swap by people that I have seen a lot of like podcasters like collaborating with each other and calling it Pod Swap. So we are doing that, and I'm so excited for that. So we're recording this episode. I'm recording this episode with Rosie on my podcast, and then I'm gonna record one episode with Rosie on Rosie is gonna record one episode with me on her channel. So it will turn out really, really, really great. But before she speaks, let me introduce her. So she's currently doing her house. She did MBBS and she's currently doing her really, really, really hectic house job. And still she found out time for us to make this collaboration happen. So everyone, please welcome Rosie. Hi Rosie, how are you doing?
Hello, everyone. Oh my God, it's so daunting to not be doing it myself and introducing myself for my podcast because I have like a pre-recording introduction and I usually just skip this part nowadays. But for people who don't know me, hello, I'm Rosie and I have my own podcast called My Intrusive Thoughts and I'm so excited to be here. I've been following the Brown Girl Rams for I think a long time since I
Yeah.
think when you started.
Yeah,
I
since
found
we
you
started.
randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been following your podcast and I'm not a very regular listener because of my job and everything. It's like very hectic,
Yeah.
but it's always fun tuning in and it's such a lovely time every time I listen to your stuff. So I'm really excited for this episode.
I am so excited. And I think we both started doing podcast at the same time. There was just a lot we could relate to. Because I remember starting the podcast and I didn't just knew a lot. I didn't knew someone who was doing podcast at the same time. And it's very tricky. People don't understand the whole RSS feed thing and like having a like channel who provides your podcast to like Apple Podcast and all other platform. It was so confusing, and the fact that we both like have to figure it out on our own separately. But then I'm so glad to have you, so that now I remember that we would discuss issue with each other initially, that why the podcast is not seen on Spotify, what's happening. So yeah, we came a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I was so scared to reach out because, like, I saw your podcast on Apple Podcast once, and the minute dekha, to you had a couple episodes out already, and I was like, "Whoa, this girl's like got her thing, she knows what she's doing." And then I wanted to reach out, but then I was like, I'm just a nobody. Like, I only have like a couple episodes. I don't know if you were gonna reply to me, but then you did. You were so excited, and that
Yeah.
was just that literally surprised me because I was like, "Whoa." Usually with I've seen with the Desi, influencers even or in this industry podcast
Yeah.
thing in the scene, it's not very like, out there. Log ek
Yeah.
dusre ko, you can't really, go up there and be like, oh, I'm a podcaster, let's talk. Because
Yeah.
people, this sort of stuff is so, it circles में होती है ये चीज. It was really daunting for me. But then we got talking, and then we would like talk about this sort of stuff, and it was really helpful because आपको एक बंदा मिल जाता है, and you're like, oh, अच्छा, if I have a problem, I can just go to this person and like, even if you don't have the answers, I can talk to you, understand what I'm talking. So that was a really good thing, and I think we figured things out eventually, and it just gave both of us the boost continue what we're doing. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that I found you, honestly. It was just a random day, and I had just like a lucky, moment, but I'm glad that it happened.
I am so glad because I honestly I don't know. We our podcast are kind of like in the same category. We both are, I think, in the personal journal category. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
anyone else from Pakistan who is doing similar like podcast in the similar way we both are. Because most
Hmm.
of the podcasters in Pakistan are influencers who are already famous and have successful YouTube channel or successful acting career or something. And then they're doing a podcast, which to me is like kind of unrelatable for me, because like they
Mm-hmm.
are already famous and they already have people who would want to listen to them, so they're listening to their podcast as well. For us, we literally had to build the audience on the podcast
Mm-hmm.
platform, which is very tricky because there's just people are on podcast platform, but we can't interact with anyone on podcast platform other than
Exactly. We're just
just
literally
posting.
throwing things out into
Yeah.
the blind space
no
and
one
we're like
no one
hoping
can even
somebody's going to catch.
yeah, no one can't even comment on the podcast. We don't know what people think
Yeah.
about it, which is good and bad. Like, if a lot of people just like, I don't think a negative person could be on a podcasting platform, which is a good thing. So it just
Mm-hmm.
filters out a lot of people. Only the people who you know are like want to listen to you and are like would listen to you talk to 1 hour would be there. But at the same time, it's
Mm-hmm.
just hard to connect and grow audience because there's not enough reach on the podcasting platform.
I know. And you know what? जैसे आपने बोला अभी कि a lot of these people are already famous and stuff, and that is true.
Yeah,
For a lot of people, influencers, artists out there, podcasting is just like an accessory, you know?
yeah,
एक
yeah,
ऐसी चीज जो कि they're doing a side hustle, but for us
yeah,
it was like the main platform. And I feel like I don't know about you, but for me, podcasting was something that stemmed from the idea of just like a journal. Like, this is
yeah.
the reason I have it as a personal journal because tried writing, like, I tried journaling, but it didn't work out because writing was not therapeutic enough for me. I needed to talk. And at one point, I was like, I need to talk, but I don't want people talking back to me. मतलब मुझे बस ऐसी चीज चाहिए
Yeah,
जहाँ
that is
बस मैं
so true.
बोलती जाऊँ and I don't want to like listen to people interrupt me talking because this is just me with my intrusive thoughts and this is the idea that I had behind this whole thing because I when I was sitting my mind just never stops. Okay, so I was like मुझे कोई ऐसी चीज चाहिए जो मैं इन सारी thoughts को कहीं पे preserve भी कर सकूं लेकिन I don't want anybody interrupting me. So podcasting was like somebody was like, "Oh, why don't you start podcasting?" I was like, "Oh, okay." But then as I researched it, I realized that it's more than just, you yapping in front of a camera, and a microphone and just
Yeah,
thinking that जो भी आप बोल रहे हो बस आप बोलते जा रहे हो because obviously people इस जो category में इस niche में people are actually actively searching for you, actively spending that time listening to you, and then they're not expecting to have any way of interacting with you. मतलब they can't even tell you if they like something or not.
yeah,
Yes, they could if they follow you like for real and they reach out to your Instagrams and YouTubes and emails, then yes. But I think on a regular day-to-day basis, कोई भी podcast सुन के ये नहीं सोचता कि अच्छा मैंने इस बात पे comment करना है, like ये चीज बुरी नहीं लगी, pause, comment. They don't do that, and that's such a huge deal. Having even like no amount of listeners is, I guess, bad in this case because even if you have one listener, one person audience, that just goes to show that that one person reached out, searched for you, spent this entire time dedicating time to listen to you talk.
yeah. And it's a big deal that if we're putting an episode for an hour, someone is listening to that for an hour, because people have very less attention spam, and no one wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is interested in like their own story, telling their own story. A lot of people, very less people are good at listening. So I think I think I'm very grateful. I do remember initially I was just being active on Instagram because I wanted people to like discover the podcast from the Instagram, because there's no way you can like grow your podcast. There's really no way. You can obviously you can upload weekly, but other than that there's nothing for that you can boost or do something. So I remember I was like, okay, I have to like keep my Instagram alive in order to
Mm-hmm.
people just discover the podcast, listen to it. But now I kind of have stopped caring. Like I don't check how many people have listened to my episode or how many views I'm getting. I'm just like, it will find its own people. And the thing is, both of us have our own profession and where we are working full time. So this
Yes,
is like
definitely.
a hobby to us, and this is something that should like give us pleasure and everything. And if so, then I realized that if I start like stressing about that, okay, oh, I'm not getting enough reach, I'm not getting enough listeners, then like what's the point?
Exactly. I think yes, you have to maintain a bit of like decorum in sense of professionalism because if you have a very जैसे कहते हैं ना कि loyal following and since you're doing it for a long time you can't just up and leave and obviously you owe them that because they're spending that much time but also there is a fine line जहाँ पे you're like oh I don't want this to become a burden because I for fun to remain fun so that मैं अपना जो the kind of pleasure and जो मैं उससे एक सेंस ऑफ फ्रीडम अवेल कर रही हूँ जो मुझे मिल रही है वो कायम रहे एंड दैट्स वेरी like hard and especially with our professions where we're working certain hours and then we're exhausted and we're like mentally and
Yeah.
physically basically drained come home and we're like I don't want that kind of thing where I'm like oh मुझे अब एक episode जो है record it
uh,
to be like that so इस चीज को maintain करना और इस चीज को follow through करना very difficult but I think that's the best part about podcasting that we can just sit and talk and let it be it हमें ये नहीं सोचना होता कि oh my god इतने followers बढ़ गए इतने followers कम हो गए और इसने मेरा मतलब इतनी रीच नहीं मिली इतनी इतनी मिल गई when you start obsessing over things I feel like you complicate it and I don't want this to be complicated so even if I have like 8 people listening okay if I have 8 I'm good enough I think अगर एक बंदा भी सुन रहा है तो I've done my job there and it's definitely like you said it's gonna find its people it's gonna find its audience by itself कभी कोई ना कोई ढूंढ ही लेगा दिल कर रहा होगा सुनने का वो ढूंढ ही लेगा
I just the only thing that मतलब I love telling people is that how much they like miss out on podcast like in general. Because for me, podcast like as a listener, podcast is like the best thing that have ever happened. Not like ever happened, like one of the best things ever. Because with my
Mhm,
work, my job, there's a lot of like computer work, and sometimes I just need something in the background, something running in the background. So I literally have like true crime podcast. I have like on Friday
mhm,
I listen to like religious podcast. I have
mhm,
personal journal podcast that like give you a little bit motivation. I have like I listen to podcasts where people, so that was like in my last podcast, I was reading Reddit stories. I personally
mhm,
listen to a lot of podcasts where they're just reading Reddit stories and they comment on that and they're so funny. And I wish I could tell people how much like it kind of makes you productive, especially if you have a job like that where you are working on computer all the time, or if you have to
mhm,
or have to do house chores and something. I wish I could tell people, because
mhm,
a lot of people in our country watch the podcast, क्योंकि a lot of people जो podcast कर भी रहे हैं यहाँ पे, there are like video podcasts. For me, it the
mhm,
video defeats the purpose of the podcast, because podcast is supposed to be something that you're listening while you're doing something at the same time as well.
mhm,
Why would you stare at your phone
mhm.
for 1 hour? So like I wish I could just tell people that just listen to more podcasts, maybe not Brown Girl Rants, but listen to podcasts, because it's literally like a good thing on the internet.
Exactly. Like, you know what? Actually, this is the one of the reasons was like I said, gay, I just wanted a platform to yap at. But also because my best friend, she is such an avid listener of podcasts. Like I remember when I was throwing out this idea to her and she was like, "Oh, yeah, I love listening to podcasts." She also works in she has a like corporate job and I like to call her a corporate slave so this girl, she was like working and she has crazy hours at times. So and she's like, she always has this one AirPod in her ear. And I'm like, girl, how do you like she's like मेरे कान में हर वक्त एक कुछ ना कुछ चल रहा होता है कुछ ना कुछ जो है ना पीछे and she's so good at it कि she can be very alert and multitask listen to people talk and she's also listening a podcast on the side and then she's also doing her work I'm like I'm a freaking doctor I work in an emergency and I can't do that. And this girl, she would listen to a podcast, in the back burner, पीछे चल रहा है, कुछ बोलता जा रहा है, कोई और she knows what that person is saying, and she can really remember all of that. I'm like, how do you do that? And she's like, it
Yes.
takes a lot of practice. And I wanted to achieve that. So I was like, oh, I can't really listen that much because मेरा इतना stamina नहीं है.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
and your
intentions
job is
kind of
like the nature of your job is really different. So in
yeah.
that, yeah,
I can't be have a like actually it's kind of like I used to in the beginning when I started my house job, I would have my AirPods in because my thing was that I need music for working and
yeah,
it has to be like for anything basically. If, even if I'm like writing files,
yeah,
except for when I'm actually checking up on a patient. If I'm just like walking around, I need music all the freaking time. And I remember this one time I was like, I took my AirPods out and I was about to put them in, and then my senior walked by and he's like, you have to be alert on job, on call, so you're not supposed to listen to that. And he was like being very polite about it. He could have said it in a very rude way, and
yeah,
thankfully he did not. And then he was like, "Beta, abhi use mat karo, because you need to be alert, and aapko koi bula raha ho, koi baat ho jaye, to this could be a liability." And
yeah,
that really sat with me for a while. I was like, "ये सही बात है." मतलब I'm in an environment where I need to give my 100%. So after that, I stopped like kind of decreased the amount that I was using. But I feel like I one of the reasons was okay, the idea of a podcast is like somebody is telling the whole story. They're building a world around you that is abstract, but at the same time you can kind of immerse yourself in it. It's
yeah.
like audiobooks, right? कोई novel पढ़ रहे हो, लेकिन but then at the same time it's somebody talking about more personal things. I think it's a wonderful platform, like you said.
And I think that there's just so many categories of podcasts. Like you open Apple Podcast and they're just like there's literally every single category podcast. And there's like podcasts about like philosophy, art,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So it's so interesting. I think for me, podcast is similar to books. Like there's just so many books and you want to read more to get just more wisdom, and more maybe just more entertainment. And I feel the same way for podcast. I think if you're just like
Yeah.
not like Joe Rogan podcast or like the podcast like
Mm-hmm.
that, but if you're like being intentional, I think it could be a really good thing because I personally work faster when I'm listening to the podcast. But speaking of your house job, how's it going, and what department you actually are in? They give you like a specific department, right, where you have to be at, or do you guys get like rotation for it after a
Uh-huh.
while,
Uh-huh.
or are you in it like in that department for your entire house job?
Okay, okay. So basically, I'm actually, I think my last month started a few days ago of my house job, and I'm like kind of sad about it because wow, this is a chapter of your life that you think about since the day you start medical school. So, and it has been a very amazing experience for me. I love being at the hospital. I love my job, if people cannot already tell, but how much I yap about my job and how much I love being a doctor. But yeah, so basically it's a 1 year training. And usually what happens is that you have to do two major departments and then two allied departments. The major departments are compulsory, and they're general medicine and general surgery, which is basically encompassing the entire, medical medicine, medical field. And then you have to do two allieds, which are like, um, sub departments of the general medicine and general surgery
Okay.
department. So like in general surgery, you do like general procedures, appendixes, and intestinal situations going on, and then breast surgeries and sort of stuff like that. And then the subcategories are like specific. So you could go into gynae, you could go into like ear, nose, and throat, which is called ENT and stuff like that. And then in medicine, you have to do general medicine, and basically it's internal medicine, everything. You're looking at all sorts of problems related to all sorts of organ systems, but then you go into more detail with an allied subject, and there is like psychiatry. You could do like nephrology or something like that. So more specific medicine, courses, departments. I did my general medicine, general surgery, and then for surgery, I chose gynae, which was
Okay.
one of the most hectic times I spent. on earth, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And then now for medicine, I've chosen psychiatry. So right now, currently, I'm in my psychiatry department. It's my last run, and we basically do like 3 months in each. We rotate around, and then usually for local graduates, they have to do it merit based because they have certain seats available for
Okay.
government health officers, but for FMGs like foreign medical graduates and for private people, they just apply and wherever they want to go. If they have seats, enough seats, they'll let you in. And यहाँ पे तो आपकी connections हैं तो भी आपको मिल जाता है, but you know how
Yeah.
things happen in Pakistan. So for me, I personally chose these things because मेरा interest था, and they were challenging, and a lot of people did not really go into these subspecialties. Gynae, for one, people abhor gynae usually. जो मैंने यहाँ पे scene देखा है, it's very hectic, and it is hectic. I mean, I did not know who I was for 3 months. I was not sleeping, eating, doing anything human. I did not feel like a human being for 3 months. And but it was eye-opening. And if you are into surgery, if you really love the gore, the blood, the
Mm-hmm.
the hectic routine of it all, then it's for you. But otherwise, oh my God, a nightmare. I could like literally yap about it for ages of how hectic and mind soul consuming it was. But psychiatry I chose because I love psychology, and it's been so much fun just being in the ward. I mean, obviously you have to treat these people who are mentally suffering, but at the same time, like from a medical perspective, you get to see so many different things, especially if you're interested in psychology. It's a really fun subject and a
Yeah.
really cool department to be in. So आजकल मैं ये कर रही हूँ basically.
So, do you see yourself to like specialize in psychiatry or in gynecology? Which one do you like, or anything else? Like, what are your plans for that?
Funnily enough, both of these are not something that I want to specialize in. I'm actually a cardiology girl,
Okay.
and I did an internship in because we don't have a cardiology department in my hospital. So I did not have a choice to intern there, or I would have. But I did like a private internship in another cardiology institute in Lahore, and that was really fun. So I kind of like got the experience I wanted, and that's what I want to pursue. Psychiatry was like, if I could do double boards, then I would like, if I have the brains for it, if I had the stamina for it, I would go for double boards, and I would also do a psychiatry, board. But I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can pull that off. That's a lot of studying and a lot of like training. But yeah, psychiatry is like if this doesn't work out, then that kind of thing. Gynae, no, not no, like no. An abrupt and constant no.
Okay, what I love and what it's refreshing for me to hear all of that from all of you, from you, and you're like the way you're explaining it with such excitement and enthusiasm, because a lot of people who are doing house job are literally like done with it. Like they're like, it's not, this is not what we want to do.
Mhm.
But I think to hear you saying that you really love it and you love just being it, just like it kind of made me really happy, because it I just all because I have friends who are also doing their house job as I
Mhm.
speak, but they're not really like happy from that. I think maybe it depends from hospital to hospital as well, or maybe like experience. I don't know, I have no like understanding of it in that way, but it's just nice
Mhm.
to hear that it's like something that you really want to do. Obviously I think in your profession you are seeing like a lot of like serious stuff, so obviously
Mhm.
you have to be like very careful with all of that. But I think it's nice to hear people saying they love their job, because it just makes me so sad to see people in a career where they don't want it to be. And
Mhm.
it's something that I really also talk about in my podcast as well, because you really need to just enjoy what you're studying and enjoy what you're doing.
Exactly.
So it's really great. Do Obviously with your job you have to literally interact with people like every single day, thousands of people.
Hmm.
How's that
Yeah.
experience? How's interacting? And there's like all types of people. There's of different gender, different age. So
Hmm.
how's that experience? Are you an extrovert? Do you like interacting with people? Was it something you struggled with initially?
Uh-huh. Okay, so first of all, like I wanted to address the thing that you said before. I love my job and I feel like सबसे बड़ी चीज जो मैंने अपनी इस सारी टेन्योर में सीखी है इससे पहले भी मैंने internship I've stayed in Multan for a while and I worked there as well as an intern. So I've been all over the place and the reason was that I just loved being in a hospital environment and I always thought of it as something that is going to ultimately embellish my, degree, my career. And I just like the idea of being a good doctor meant that I loved doing what I was doing. And I saw my seniors all around. I know people in every department at this point, like all sorts of fields of medicine. And सबसे मैंने ये चीज सीखी कि at a certain point in life, you start to feel that redundancy in things जब आप एक चीज बार बार कर रहे होते हो रोज उठ के कर रहे होते हो so it kind of loses its charm, right?
Yeah.
And that was something that really stuck with me. I was so scared कि जब मैं अपनी हाउस जॉब खत्म करी होंगी तो would I be as burnt out? Would I be like, oh my God, I hate this, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life? And so I thought कि अगर मैंने अपने सर पे सवार किया हर चीज को every day I'm going to work, and for me my mindset is कि आज मैं कुछ नया देखूंगी even though it's the same disease, it's the same set of people, but I'm going to take it as a new opportunity to discover new things, talk to new people, think about the same thing in a different way every day. And so that really helped. And plus, I feel like you have to at some point be crazy about something for it to
Yeah.
last. अगर मैं ये सोचूं कि ओ माय गॉड आई एम अ डॉक्टर व्हाटएवर, अगर मैं उस चीज को फॉर ग्रांटेड लेना शुरू कर दूं तो डेफिनेटली आई बी लाइक व्हाटएवर यार मैं कहाँ फंस गई हूँ यार ये क्या होगा बिकॉज एवरी डे आई थिंक अबाउट आई रिमेम्बर द डेज व्हेन आई वुड सिट ऑन माय प्रेइंग मैट, मैं नमाज से
Yeah.
बैठी हूँ एंड आई एम क्राइंग आई एम मतलब अल्लाह मेरे से बस ये दुआ होती थी कि अल्लाह I want to see myself in that white coat. For me, my
Yeah.
dad has been my biggest inspiration, and I've grown up looking at him and the way he loved his job and he sacrificed so much for it and he still does to this day, mashallah. And looking at him, he has been my inspiration. So I would sit and be like, I just want to be like my dad. Like even if I could be like 40% of it, I would be so happy. And after a while, like, there was a point when I thought it was impossible. There was a point where I was like, oh my God, I have to choose a different thing. And funnily enough, I actually almost got admission in BS psychology. And that was supposed to be like my, क्या कहते हैं, backup plan. And then I actually got there. I was about to submit my application. Or मैंने, I think करवा भी दी जमा. And then I came back home and I just could not sleep. I was like, I don't see myself, without that white coat and that
Yeah.
stethoscope. I just want to do this. And since then, mashallah, mashallah, I feel like every day has been that realizing this dream was something that I did for myself, not for anybody else. I think that helped a lot because मैं ये सब कुछ अपने लिए करी थी और मैं आगे भी अपने लिए करूंगी. I want to be a good doctor for myself so that I can, अपने standards से पूरा उतर सकूं, अपनी expectations से पूरा उतर सकूं, and that really helps.
Yeah. And the idea that you're making someone's life better, someone
Yeah,
is feeling better
you
because
just
of
like,
you.
yeah.
And people like,
Definitely, when people, yeah,
yeah,
when people pray for you, जब आपको वो
they
दुआएं देते
thank
हैं, and it's
you.
like,
Yeah, they pray for
exactly, and that's
आपको
such a
दुआएं देते हैं.
precious
Yeah.
feeling, exactly. And आप जब सवाल कर रहे थे कि I'm a very introverted person, the whole point of intrusive thoughts is me being very introverted and having like such dark humor and such like dark thoughts that sometimes I sit and tell myself, okay, girl, you need therapy, okay? You actually need therapy because you see a lot of like trauma around you in a hospital, and after a while it starts to get to you. And I was like going through it during my medicine rotation because you see a lot of deaths happening around you. You see a
Yeah.
lot of like trauma, all sorts of things like imaginable to humankind are happening. And you're there to deal with it, and you're there to make decisions, and you're there to like literally, help people survive at some point. You have to bring them back to life at some point. So a lot of things going on. And so I was very introverted, and मुझे workplace में किसी नए जगह पे डिपार्टमेंट में जाके सेटल होने में भी टाइम लगता था. It was very hard, but I think me being crazy about my job got me through it because I was like, I don't care if I get anxious, if I get jittery, if my tongue feels like it's swollen three sizes, because I'm gonna do this. I'm not doing it for like other people. This is for me, and this is so that I can be a better doctor. Funnily enough, when I started out, मेरी पंजाबी इतनी अच्छी नहीं है. And funny story, my first time in a
Yeah.
patient's history, I had to take, वो थे बाबा जी से थे 70 ish की एज के. और I remember my consultant told me कि जाओ और अंकल से उनकी हिस्ट्री लेके आओ बाबा जी से. I was like, okay. Now this बाबा जी वो किसी पता नहीं गांव से आए हुए थे. एक्सेंट था
Hmm.
एक उसमें, वो पंजाबी में मुझे ठेठ पंजाबी के अंदर वो मुझे अपनी हिस्ट्री दे रहे हैं. Or he said something about veins. Normally, we as medical students learn things in a very medical way. Okay, we have to learn the definitions and we have to learn specific medical terms, right? And then the whole idea of training is to be able to translate those medical terms into layman language, जो आम लोग समझ सके. और उस वक्त I was like fresh out of like third year, I think. और we were not at the point where we could like explain what a heart attack is in general terms to a regular person so that they would understand what's actually going on, right? And this Baba just tries explaining to me about his history. उनको heart attacks हुए हुए थे दो तीन, और वो उसकी मुझे history बता रहे हैं. And he was like maybe I still can't remember the word that he used, specific word, which I had to like come home and ask my mother. अम्मा ये क्या होता है? What? Because I was so blank और वो पंजाबी में बात कर रहे थे मेरे से, and I was like so excited and nervous. और आधी बातें उनकी मेरे सर के ऊपर से गुजर रही थी, और उन्होंने कुछ कहा मुझे. So I just stared at him. मैंने अपने पेपर पे कुछ नहीं लिखा. I will go back into my consultant's office, and he's like, so beta, what happened? And I'm like, sir, मुझे कुछ समझ नहीं आया. And I just blank out and I freak out. And he's like, he just looks at me and he starts laughing. He's like, beta, koi baat nahi. This is the point, right? You're here to learn. And then he
Yeah.
brings the guy in and he starts taking history, and he's just sitting there, hand tapered together. और वो अपनी glasses थोड़ी नीचे करके उनको बड़े गौर से देख रहे हैं, उनको assess कर रहे हैं. And I was so fascinated with it. I was like, I did not even care to look at his face to even imagine and gauge कि भाई इनको क्या मसला है, या उनकी कोई को तो ना आप खुद से बनाते हो अपने माइंड में किसी को देख के उसको. This is part of our training कि आप you have to look at their appearance and you have to kind of gauge what this their signs or symptoms could be from their appearance and stuff. And I was like, I was so nervous and dumb at that time that I did not even care to look at him properly and everything. And then he sat me down and he was like, Beta, you have to get over your nerves. It's okay. And so I think the biggest challenge for me was learning Punjabi. I am much more fluent, even though still my peers they make fun of me. They're like, "Beta, tum na bola karo, tum try na kya karo." I was like, it's one of my languages, my mother language is. I'm a Punjabi. What happened? But yeah, that was very hard. And plus, like, just I'm not a very social person, so just having to talk to people was so daunting in the beginning. Like now I just yap. I think podcasting has helped too.
Okay, so one thing that I actually also wanted to ask you, that you lived a part of your life in China. How was that?
Okay, China. I've talked about this on my podcast as well. China was an experience that I feel like I really needed. It was one of those, you know, for the plot kind of
Yeah,
thing. Uh, I've heard this phrase everywhere, okay, everything's happening for the plot these days. And
cinematic
that was,
value.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And yes, exactly that was what it was. Because I grew up very, but should say I've been this person who lives in a fantasy world. I have loved reading fantasy books. I've loved watching fantasy movies my entire life. Harry Potter, like for the longest time, I was waiting for that Hogwarts letter, okay? And I was like, this has to be true. I just have to have that letter, okay? And I remember that we had this platform where there was this very sweet lady. She used to live in Britain, and she would like hand type these, like handwrite those letters and mail them to you. And I almost like I begged her, I remember that, can you please make me one? And she promised to send me one, but then my mother would not allow me to give my address out to random people on the internet. So I never got mine. But so that was how desperate I was for fantasy stuff, right? And so growing up, I read a lot of books with these, mid-20-ish girls who would like have their own apartments, live abroad and live like a very independent life. They're
Yeah.
working, they're studying, they're going out and buying groceries and, furnishing their houses and going like thrifting and stuff like that. And I was like, I wanted that life for myself. I wanted to struggle like that. I wanted to
Yeah.
humble myself like that. And I really wanted that movie-like experience because in Pakistan, हमारा culture नहीं है ये. Definitely pamper our kids, and we definitely, at least for girls, हम उनको बहुत जो है ना वो रखते हैं छुपा कर और बड़ा
Yeah.
शील्ड करके रखते हैं. And I guess I get it why we do it.
Yeah.
It's the culture, it's the way our values teach us stuff. But I wanted that tough life. I wanted
Yeah.
to be, fixing my own light bulbs, cleaning my own bathrooms, and I needed to do that. I think I really wanted and needed that experience. So that was one reason why I chose China. And then life in China was exactly like that. I was on my own in a country where I could not speak the language for the longest time, and we would have to like mime literally. मतलब अंडे चाहिए तो you are doing like those वो उसके flapping motions so that you can tell them you need a chicken egg and then going around and round. And then yeah, so that was how we started off. And then slowly you kind of like integrate yourself into the culture and stuff. And culturally जो एक heavy आपके पास civilizations होती है ना, वहां पे सबसे अच्छी बात ये होती है कि at least for China, I mean, in Asia, I've seen this happen in Asia,
Yeah.
okay, they're accepting. If you show them interest, they
Yeah.
are going to like, take that interest and run with it, basically. And plus, China and Pakistan, bhai bhai hai, हमने शुरू से सुना था.
Yeah.
And that actually is true. That is true. They're like, they really love you. If you tell them you're a Pakistani, they're gonna like try to befriend you, try to help you. Chinese people are like nice like that. It was really interesting, learning their culture, learning the language, exploring new places. It's just such a pretty place to go and visit. If, you could ever get a chance, do go. I would recommend everybody. It's like if you want to, if you're a history nerd like me and you want to like experience to ancient times stay, and they've preserved it so well. And it's such an amazing thing. Like if you ever go to Beijing and you visit the, temple of heaven, or you go to the Forbidden Palace, you're gonna see the places they like the kings used to use, the dynasties, all their artifacts preserved as it is. It's like you've been transported back in history. It was so much fun. So yeah, the entire experience was like mind-blowing. Plus also humbling because अपने light bulbs खुद ही fix करने होते हैं, bills pay करने होते हैं. You have to like be an adult.
You're on your
Like
own.
yeah, you're on your own. You can't just call Amma and be like, Acha,
Yeah.
I'm too lazy for this stuff. You can do
Yeah.
this. You can look after this. You have to be everything for yourself. And it can be lonely at times. And especially coming from a Desi family where like everybody's in everybody's business, it can get very isolating. But I loved it. And I think I fell in love with that concept of being so, self-sufficient. Okay, अब at this point in life, I'm like, if I don't get married, if I don't have a man's, I don't, I'm okay because
Yeah.
I have lived my life the way I wanted on my own terms, and I fell in love with that, and I love my own company, and I think that's the best thing that can happen to a person when you start loving the time that you spend with yourself for yourself.
Yeah. Truly. I think um the way you're explaining it makes me just so excited. Even the way you're telling it, um, I love that, and I think everyone should have this opportunity. I wanted it for the longest time, but I think for some people
Mhm.
it could happen, for some people it couldn't, and I was like, okay, when it can, if it can happen, that would be really good. But if
Mhm.
it can't, then I just have to like be happy with the way my life is, because um
Mhm.
obviously like everything cannot happen for every single person, like, but I love the way you're explaining it, and the way, like, I love seeing like people win in life, and I love seeing people just having this experience and then also enjoying this experience. The way I
Mhm.
and I'll say this thing again, like, I have seen people who are in mid school who really wanted to be in med school, but then it's too hectic for them, and it just does not make
Mhm.
them happy, and they're really miserable in that. The same way, I have seen people who really just wanted to move abroad, get out of Pakistan, but once they get out there, they just don't like it. And they're like कि
Mhm.
पाकिस्तान में मौजें हैं, यहाँ तो सही नहीं है. और मुझे लगता है कि the point being is that what I have seen, and what I really appreciate and adore actually in you, that you really are trying to just make the best out of it, and you're enjoying every bit of your life. जो कि बहुत कम
Yeah,
ऐसा लोग करते हैं.
I think obviously there were points during this entire time that I lived in China where I cried. I was
Yeah.
depressed. I missed home and I was like, यार ये मैं कहाँ आ गई हूँ? But at the end of the day, I feel like मुझे satisfaction हमेशा अपनी लाइफ में इन चीजों से रही है कि एक तो I'm blessed with the fact that my parents have always given me the agency and
Yeah.
the autonomy to make decisions for myself, which I understand is a privilege, and I admit that not a lot of people around me, even in my own circle, लड़कियां खास तौर पे
Mm.
उनको उनके पेरेंट्स इतनी आजादी देते हैं कि वो अपने इस तरह के फैसले ले सकें.
Yeah.
Because moving abroad as a girl, मैं अपने फैमिली में एक्सटेंडेड फैमिली में आई एम द ओनली गर्ल
Yeah.
अपने कजन्स में सब में जो बाहर रही हूँ जिसने मतलब इतना टाइम अकेले स्पेंड किया है और इतनी कम एज में सो and single at that. So that was something that it boggles our mind to this day. I'm like, Mom, I don't know how you did that, but like, wow, thank you for that because that gave me the satisfaction and the confidence to just live my life and make these choices for myself. Because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times you're riding on the fact कि भाई ये तो अम्मा अब्बा की चॉइस थी तो इसमें कुछ गलत होगा तो देखी जाएगी और फिर जब कुछ गलत होता है तो फिर यू हैव दैट लीवे टू ब्लेम अदर्स टू प्ले द ब्लेम गेम. मैंने अपने आप को बताया हुआ था कि लुक गर्ल, ये डिसीजन तुम्हारा था और तुम यहाँ आई हो अपने डिसीजन पे. तो अगर कुछ अच्छा हो रहा है तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह फॉर दैट. अगर कुछ बुरा हो रहा है तो उसमें भी नाशुक्री नहीं करनी है हमने.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure it out, okay? Because you decided this and it's on you. You can't blame anybody else for this. And
Yeah.
I think that really gave me the confidence and the boost I needed because there were times when I was like, I remember I was supposed to come back for my cousin's wedding and she is the person that I've grown up with. Like
Yeah.
a joke कि अगर वो लड़का होती तो मैं उससे शादी कर लेती. Like we were that close.
Yeah.
And like I had this entire thing planned since the beginning of times कि उसकी शादी पे मैं ऐसे करूंगी उसकी शादी पे मैं वैसे करूंगी. Like I had a whole um, a plan, okay, for her wedding, and then I had to miss out on that. And that was like the biggest, like, एक होता है ना कि shock for you okay, whoa, this is not happening. Like I could not have imagined not being there for her wedding, and I couldn't attend her wedding. And I remember like I cried so much because of that. I was like everybody or her wedding was the one I think event जहाँ पे मेरी सारी extended family मौजूद थी. All my cousins were flying back home from different countries, and they were like partying it out and they were going out and they were
Yeah.
hanging together. And then I was there in my apartment. आधी रात को बैठ के जब वो कोने में रो रही हूँ कि oh my God, how is it
Hmm.
possible that I've missed out? So yes, you win some, you lose some. It's part of, but I think it's part of the experience. And it actually, um, there were a lot of traumatic things that happened. My grandma passed away when I was there, and everybody was home, and I was not around. And just the idea to this day, like it feels like it still doesn't. feel real to me sometimes because I did not see this happen in front of me. I was not there to say my last goodbyes to her. And
Mm.
so I had to live with that alone over there in my dorm room with people that I had like Nigerian dorm mates. So they did not know my culture, they did not understand my language, but they were like they could sense that grief. So they helped me a lot
Mm.
to process it, to get out of it. So a lot happened. And yes, it was not sunshine and rainbows all the time. Lekin I feel like that added to my strengths because once you realize that you can get through this stuff by yourself, you know that you can do anything.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that for myself, and I wish that for you and for everybody who wants
Yeah.
to, experience the life.
Yeah.
Because definitely, मैं अपने बहन भाइयों को भी ये कहती हूँ you need to live a certain amount of time away from, your family and loved ones and people who have your back. Because अगर आप हर वक्त शील्डेड रहोगे और आपको पता है कि भाई मेरे बैक पे ये बंदा खड़ा हुआ है और मुझे ये सपोर्ट कर ही लेगा, तो फिर you won't be taking risks. You won't even
Yeah.
try. So you need to like throw yourself into the, unknown for you to understand yourself better. And I think that has helped a lot. Definitely.
Yeah.
I got to know myself as a person. मेरे क्या uh, strong points हैं, मेरे क्या weak points हैं. When I lived alone with myself and I had my own company, so I realized how annoying I can be when I am sleep deprived and how anxious I can be जब results आने वाले हैं. And I'm just pacing
Yeah.
the room and be like, oh my God, पता नहीं क्या होगा. And I'm how elated I get when, I'm watching something that I really like and I'm just actually I was so it's still weird to me that I developed this habit of talking to myself. I literally do that to this day. My mother's like, "तुम पागल लगती हो कभी कभी बैठे हुए." Because I lived alone for like for 2 years. I had a studio apartment, and I would like come back home from college, and then I would just be by myself. And I really got out. Like I would hang out with my friends and all, but like usually I would just be home. I was a homebody. So if I'm watching a TV show or if I'm like listening to something or anything that got me excited, I would just talk to myself. And to this day,
Yeah.
like if I'm excited, you would just hear me talking to myself, and I'm just like, यार तुम पागल हो गई हो मतलब इतना अजीब लगता है जब तुम अकेले में बैठ के अपने आप से बातें करते हो. And now that I'm in psychiatry, I see that and I realize that it's an actual like symptom of like a mental disease, and I'm like, oh my God,
Oh
girl, you
my
need to
God.
tone that down. Even though it's like a coping mechanism from being alone for a long time, we need to tone that down.
But yeah, I think even if it's for like a month or two, I wish everyone could really experience that. But
Yeah.
you have been in Pakistan for a few years. What's the
Hmm.
country on your like travel destination list?
Okay, I've always wanted to visit South Korea,
Oh, yeah.
for obvious reasons,
Yeah,
but
it's
then also because of culture. Like, I think I'm a culture nerd. I love
yeah,
experiencing new cultures. The Saudi culture is like it has its own perks and
yeah,
amazing different things related to that. And then I've been to Dubai and the Emirati, like the way they behave and everything. That's also different as well. And then I had a lot of like African friends and different African countries have different like cultures and languages and stuff. So I had a lot of Nigerian friends and Ghanaian friends. So unka culture, unke songs, unki dressing. It was so much fun to like explore all of that. And so Chinese as well, like that. Even in China, they have Northern Chinese के certain जो है वो तौर तरीके हैं, Southerns के
yeah,
different हैं. So I really loved exploring that. So definitely I wanna go and visit, explore South Korea and also
yeah,
Japan.
yeah,
And
Japan.
then also I want to go to England. I don't know why.
Mm.
I just want to experience that like old English, like kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
go visit like suburbs and villages and just kind of like live that
yeah.
English girl life. So that's on my list, travel
Yeah,
list basically. Let's
yeah,
see where life takes me, but hopefully I can get to visit these places. What about
yeah.
you?
As okay for me, I would love to like visit Korea and Japan as well. Maybe Japan a little bit more because I think there's just more for
Mhm.
Korea. It's like more for the K drama and the K-pop and like the content we watch. With Japan, I think there's just more tourist like destination with the cherry
Yeah, places. Oh
blossoms.
my God. Yes. Oh
And
God.
they, I think they have a like, I really love Studio Ghibli, and I think they have a lot of like
Oh my God.
themed
Yes.
Studio Ghibli
Oh
parks
my
and
God.
everything.
Yes. I
So
want to live that life.
I think, but I think
That could be
Japan is
part of.
more expensive as compared to Korea. Let's see. But yeah,
Well, I have friends in South Korea.
yeah,
Like a funny, it's a funny thing that I always tell people that while living in China, I made more Korean friends than I did Chinese friends because Koreans are like just more out there and they're like more, they kind of like they talk to you as a foreigner. It's very hard to like make conversation with
yeah,
Chinese people because
yeah,
they're like in their own zones and kind of thing. But even though like even with that, I made a lot of good Chinese friends, but I made a lot of like Korean friends, and we would like sit and talk about, the culture differences that they think they have. And obviously there are a lot. The whole history is like it's a lot happening, okay? If you look at Chinese history, Korean history, Japanese history, and they're so interlinked and
yeah,
intermingled,
yeah,
and they've taken a lot of stuff from each of those cultures.
yeah,
But one thing that I love about each of them is how receptive they are of like, you know, एक होता है ना, hosting.
yeah,
They love hosting people, all of them. I think it's an Asian thing. Even with us, Desi
yep,
people, we love having davats and big parties and stuff. So I want to experience that if I go there, like big spread, like a big Japanese spread or like a big Korean spread. I just love food.
yep.
I've loved Japanese food, like good Japanese food. If you find it over here, it's more of a fusion thing in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
I heard that they've opened up a few authentic places now, so I'm really excited to explore that after my house job is done. But like, yeah, good like, authentic food is like I would love to experience that.
Yeah, I think there are like two, three Chinese places that have opened in Lahore recently where there are Chinese chef actually that
Yeah,
make
I think there was one in Emporium Mall for
yeah,
some
there's
reason.
one
I
in Emporium and there's one in Amana, I think. There's one in I think
Mhm.
Defense as well. So actually like it would be very I really wanted to know that from you. What's your opinion on like I assume you have like tried ha authentic Chinese in China. So what how do you
Yeah,
feel about
that's what I
like
lived
they
on for like 3 years.
they say Chinese?
Okay, it's
How
like,
is
it
it
was the
different?
switch was yeah, definitely. It's the stuff you eat here is nothing like the stuff that you would get in a normal Chinese
Who
restaurant
came
or
up
like
with the Chinese in Pakistan then? It's
the
so funny.
Pakistanis, I think. They just imagined it could be like this. I think the biggest change was the rice
Okay.
because they have sticky rice and we eat
Oh
basmati
yeah,
rice,
yeah,
dry
yeah,
rice. It's very dry. And when I got there, I remember the first time. So I was in the north. So over there, they have like this style of cuisine, right? In south, we are more similar to the southerns because they have like this gravy sort of thing with every food item, right?
yeah.
उनका उनके राइस होते हैं उनकी ग्रेवी टाइप मेन डिश होती है और फिर साथ उनके जो है साइड डिशेस होती हैं in the north people prefer more roasted stuff because it's colder up there so they like barbecued stuff more and noodles more so उनकी noodle based चीजें बहुत ज्यादा होती हैं and they have like soups, a lot of soups. We call them tang in Chinese. So they have a lot of tang, different flavors of tang. And there's this one very particular coriander tang that they used to drink a lot. Matlab, wo literally straight up, you boil a lot of dhania and like a bit of like chicken powder in water and you make it very watery. It's like the soup that we drink here is like that's not soup. I don't know who came up with that, but uh, the way that they drink it, it's very like liquidy and
Yeah,
very
brothy.
runny,
Yeah, like a
brothy,
broth.
liquidy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm bad at explaining food stuff, but yeah. So and they have a lot of like soup, noodle based stuff. So it was kind of hard to switch because I was like, yeah, noodles खा खा के बस हो गई है. That would
Hmm.
be me in the beginning. And they had very large portions. मतलब एक बंदा मेरे जैसा बंदा जो है वो एक उनका पोर्शन 4 दिन में खत्म करता है वो एक टाइम पे खाते थे so I really struggled with that actually. Like I would order something and I would eat it for days. क्योंकि वो खत्म ही नहीं हो रहा होता था and I hate wasting food. So I would reheat it and then reheat it and then reheat it. So that was me. But I feel like the sticky rice was the biggest change for me. Plus, a lot of their food, matlab, for us people, I think जो हमारी community थी वहाँ पे, they used fish oils and like sunflower seed oil to cook. And it has a very specific taste and it gives off a very specific smell. So in
Yeah.
the beginning, I got so grossed out by the smell. But over time, I kind of developed a tolerance for it, but that was really hard. And और मजे की बात यह है कि when I got back home after eating on sticky rice and all of that sort of stuff for a while, it was so hard for me to switch. Like my gut hated me for the first 3 months. I would like throw up everything. मुझे बासमती rice से नफरत हो गई थी when I got back. And I remember when I got back उसके कुछ देर बाद रमजान start होना था
Yeah.
और रमजान में I would like do my sehri with water and like yogurt because the idea of eating anything would just like gross me out or basmati rice were so dry and like I just was so solid and non-sticky. It was so hard for me to get back into like my desi self because I was so used to the sticky rice and it's so sticky rice की आप थोड़ी सी भी quantity खाओगे तो it's kind of fulfilling.
Yeah.
Basmati rice आप एक plate पूरी भी खाओगे तो sometimes you're like no, this is not enough. So it was very hard to switch back, but thankfully now I can. But I miss that. I actually miss uh, actual original Chinese food.
Yeah. I would actually love to try Chinese food. Let's see. I'll
Oh,
ask
there's
you.
actually I think a restaurant. If we ever like get to hang out, we should go there.
Yeah. I think we
It's
live
called
nearby. Obviously, we
yeah, I
cannot
think.
like we cannot reveal our address on this podcast. Well, we'll discuss it later. I think we live nearby.
Yeah. We could like check out this place in Georgetown.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. I think it's called Lanzhou, Lamian or something like that.
Okay.
And I've heard like my friends who were in China, they've gone there and they were telling me about it and they were like, "Oh, it's pretty
Yeah, it looks
authentic."
pretty
So
authentic.
I'm guessing that's good. So
Well, we
I've been
should.
planning to check it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay,
We
but
could like just go and review it. We could do like a re review podcast and be like, "Oh, we
exactly.
went there," and
Exactly.
it would be good content.
Yeah. But yeah, I would love like also like whenever I hear someone like talking about some country, I just want to visit. Like you're talking about China, I want to visit China. But for me, I would love to visit Italy. It's like, oh my God. It's like a dream place for me, but it seems like very far-fetched right now. I would also
Hmm.
love to visit Copenhagen in Denmark. It looks so gorgeous. And then my brother actually moved to UK last year for his studies. So right now I just
Uh-huh.
have this one goal in life that I want to like because now he's there, so I can easily go. Not easily,
Hmm.
like, but I can go. But with Pakistani passport, there's a lot of like visa issues.
Oh my God.
It,
Tell
it,
me
the-
about it, girl. I've
and I
just
hate
traveled.
that.
I've come back,
Yeah.
and let me tell you, you just wanna, at one point, I love my country to some extent. So, but then I would say, okay, sometimes you just wanna like tear this passport and just throw it into a bin. Cause like, what
Really?
the hell? You just, oh my God, like everybody's, in the immigration line and they're getting through. कोई
Yeah.
मसला नहीं हो रहा, but as soon as your green passport, this hideous thing comes up,
Yeah.
everybody's attention is on you suddenly, and they're asking you random questions. आपकी birth history पूछ रहे हैं, आपकी जो है वो criminal history पूछ रहे हैं, आपको ऊपर से नीचे तक सारी चीजें उतरवा रहे हैं, आपकी belt उतारो, coat उतारो,
Oh
मतलब
my
it's so
God.
embarrassing. And
Embarrassing.
you're like, oh my, I had this once, this whole experience in Abu Dhabi once. I was flying from Abu Dhabi to Beijing, and I remember that they told me to take my shoes off. And then they were like, oh, you have to take your belt off as well. And then they were like, oh, you need to take off your clip as well. Like I was wearing this freaking clip on my hair, and they wanted me to take that off as well. And
Oh my
everybody else
God.
was just passing by, and then they're like, अपनी socks भी उतारे, ये भी उतारे, वो
What?
भी उतारे, and I just stood there. I was like, should I just strip naked? Is that what you want? Like, you want me to just take
Mm.
everything off? Will that make you happy?
That is like
And
so.
I was like, oh God, I need to, I need a passport upgrade.
Uh,
Somebody, please. And
and
I like,
you
it's
have a
so
lot of
weird.
like travel history now. So if you have to go through all of this, I cannot even imagine for people who are traveling for the first time and they have to
Yeah,
experience all of that. Um,
I
it's really
know it's
sad.
very hard. It's very
Yeah.
daunting, but I guess you kind of get used to it. Like after a while, you just get immune
Uh,
to the disrespect. You're just like, okay, whatever. I'm a Pakistani, deal with
yeah.
it. So
But
you just kind of have to have that attitude.
yeah, but like even with Dubai's visa was so easy to get, but then they restricted their visa for Pakistanis. Even Turkey
Yeah,
restricted their visa for Pakistani. So I just hope we just get out of it, because like a lot of people would love to travel, and traveling abroad is not like a very it's not accessible for every single person. So I hope it could be
exactly.
more accessible for people, so people could just experience other things as well.
I
But
know. But then you know what? I think I was actually having the same conversation with my cousin earlier
yeah,
today, and we were talking. He just came back from the UK,
yeah,
and he lives there, so he's visiting. And we've just come back from Saudi. So we were just discussing, our experiences on different flights and airlines and stuff. And we realized that it's actually partly Pakistani fault.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
हम लोग अपनी जो representation कर रहे होते हैं ना. Now
Hmm.
I remember this once I was traveling from Beijing to Lahore, and you know, Beijing airport is large. It's huge. It's ginormous. Okay, so you have to walk a lot to get to from one point to the other, and even in that ginormous place, I could easily identify Pakistanis. Why? Because they were the only people doing some random bullshit that you would not expect people to be doing on an
Hmm.
airport. It was so funny and so irritating at the same time. Like I remember, but then for some reason there was like this whole flight that had come from Medina, and so people were like in their ihrams. I don't understand how that was linked, where they were supposed to be going, but they were all traveling from Medina, and somehow they were in Beijing, and they were then traveling to Lahore. And I remember that these people, they were sitting on the floor, literally हमारा जहाँ पे baggage हमने कराना था जमा, वहां पे उन्होंने, you have to, first of all, Pakistanis will never make a line. They will never queue up. If it says you have to queue up, they will never. They will always be standing, एक झुंड बना के खड़े होंगे, और वो बेचारे बोलते रह जाएंगे पीछे से कि लाइन बनाए लाइन बनाए, और वो बेचारी चाइनीज थी, उसको समझ भी नहीं आ रही थी कि अब मैंने इनसे कैसे जो है वो उनको बताना है कि यू हैव टू मेक अ लाइन, सो दे वर रियली गेटिंग ऑन हर नर्व्स. उसके बाद वो एक फैमिली बैठी हुई थी. व्हाट दे वर डूइंग वाज, they were like, those mandarins, the Chinese oranges, the small ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those, they're really delicious, first of all. Second of all, like you can eat like a bunch by yourself. Like वो इतने मजे के इतने छोटे छोटे होते हैं कि a person can eat like a lot of them at one point. So this family had like a huge, like basket of those mandarins in the middle, और वो सारे उसके इर्द गिर्द लाइन में बैठे हुए हैं सर्कल बना के, और वो खाते जा रहे हैं, और वो सारे उसके जो छिलके होते हैं उनको वो साइड पे जो है वो उसका अंबार लगाते जा रहे हैं, literally in the middle of the airport. And there's like people walking by and they're looking at them कि ये गन मचा रहे हैं यहाँ पे. And for I was like, I was watching them the entire time. I was like, अब मैं ये देखूंगी कि ये लोग ये सारा गन जो इन्होंने मचाया है उठा के रास्ते में
Yeah.
फेंकेंगे कि नहीं. And they
That
did
is
not.
that is embarrassing. I think people, like, again, I think people just don't know how to travel. I don't know why, or people are just like so just, I don't know, they're so ignorant maybe, that they don't
I guess
realize.
there's not a lot of awareness.
Yeah,
My cousin was telling me about this thing that they've like implemented for skilled worker visa, because we have a lot of like laborers going from Pakistan to other countries, right? So for UK, it's not funny, Rosie. It's not funny, but like I just can't stop laughing at this. They've now developed this sort of like visa protector or something. It's like basically a course
yeah,
where they basically tell you it's a slideshow where they tell you basic things like don't spit on the sidewalks, don't urinate in public,
Yeah.
don't, throw rubbish on the floor. And you have to do that
Hmm.
to be able to apply for a visa, a skilled worker visa. And my cousin was like, they literally asked me to do this course thingy. And I was like, I'm literally a CEO of a company, and you want me to do this? And they're like, we can't trust Pakistanis anymore. All of you will have to
Yeah.
go through this. And it was just the most basic thing. And he was like, why are they even asking this? And then he was like, no, I get it why they're asking. Like उसमें एक चीज थी कि आपने बाहर के मुल्क में जाके भीख नहीं मांगनी.
Oh
And
yeah,
I was
a lot
like,
of people
the,
do that. I hear that in
the fact that
Saudi
they do
and
this,
in UAE.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was in
there's
Medina, and this woman comes up to me, और उसने बुर्का पहना हुआ है पूरा ऊपर से नीचे तक, like the Arab women dress. And then she started talking in Saraiki. And I don't know Saraiki myself, but I like, kind of I have a friend who is Saraiki. So when she started talking, I was so surprised. I was like, "Girl, what? Come again? What?" And then she was basically asking for money, and I was like, "Whoa, Pakistani is just why can we not be a little more dignified and just carry ourselves with a little more dignity and
yeah.
just I don't know, please, I'm begging, let
I
us
think
travel
with
in peace."
education, we need to like with education, people will just like learn more. Because obviously, on the other hand, I have seen people who are just more careless in their own country, but the moment they're in another country, they just like there are a part of people that would like throw garbage in Pakistan anywhere, but the moment they're in Canada or America, they know they cannot throw garbage just anywhere and they would find a dustbin for the garbage because they know if they'll do it, they're like people, some people are there like would not just like leave their ass
Exactly.
alone like that.
Yeah, I know. I guess this is conditioning.
Yeah,
And the psychology behind that is there are repercussions. Obviously, if you cannot overspeed in Saudi Arabia because you know that your
yeah,
ass is gonna get
yeah,
fined,
yeah,
and that fine is gonna be so large that you're gonna be paying it off for decades. So
yeah,
people, when you have that sort of like the fear of punishment, the fear of like accountability, and you know that they're gonna, pull through, they're gonna do it. They're not just gonna be like, "अच्छा, चलो जाओ जाओ कोई बात नहीं रिश्वत कराओ और जाओ." ऐसे
yeah,
नहीं होगा वहां पे. So
exactly.
then people are, when you know that they're gonna be doing their work honestly, you're gonna follow through.
Yeah, so
पाकिस्तान में जब हम अपने मुल्क में implement नहीं करेंगे ये चीजें,
yeah,
तो
exactly.
definitely we're not gonna
Hmm.
grow accustomed to this.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into politics, but like, with different political
yeah,
parties that we have,
yeah,
in some governments you see people trying to implement like actual, rules and regulations. लेकिन हमारे यहाँ पे I've seen different suggestions in parliament being declined just because it kind of messes up the whole
yeah.
rishwat system and corruption system, and people
Hmm.
are not ready
Yeah,
to
exactly.
do their jobs honestly and
Yeah.
corruption free. So आप जब अपनी कंट्री में इस चीज के यूज टू हो जाते हो तो फिर it's very
Hmm.
hard for you to adapt to a
Yeah.
fair and just system.
Especially if you're used to like all the luxury and you're like a part of like the privileged people in this country, then you cannot
Yeah.
accept कि आप किसी और मुल्क में जाएं और उनके रूल्स फॉलो करें इवन दो आपकी वहां पे बेइज्जती होनी है अगर आप नहीं करेंगे and it will give us
The
second hand
entitlement,
embarrassment.
I tell you,
Yeah,
the entitlement is real. Or I think the biggest problem that we face is the fact that these are learned, educated people.
yeah,
जो कि अपनी कंट्री में वो हरकतें करेंगे जो आप एक मतलब जाहिल से भी एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहे होते. और बाकी कंट्रीज में जाके यही वो लोग होंगे जो लाइन में चल रहे हैं, जो सर नीचे करके चल रहे हैं. वहां पे ये लोग मैकडोनल्ड में जाके जो है वो काउंटर पे कैशियर भी बन जाएंगे. ये वो लोग
yeah,
होंगे जो कि बाथरूम्स भी साफ करेंगे, पब्लिक टॉयलेट्स भी साफ कर रहे होंगे. ये गेट कीपर्स भी बन जाएंगे. ठीक है, ये
yeah.
हाउस हेल्प्स भी बन जाएंगे, ये बेबी सिटर्स भी बन जाएंगे. लेकिन पाकिस्तान में आके इन्होंने हर वो काम करना है और
और
अपनी
पाकिस्तान में
उस
अगर कोई ऐसी जॉब कर रहा है तो उस वो जो बेचारा बंदा जो ऐसी जॉब कर रहा है उसको फिर मतलब कि दे मेक देम फील बैड कि व्हाई आर यू डूइंग अ जॉब लाइक दैट.
exactly. I swear to God, for the longest time, I wanted to work at McDonald's. Like, I wanted to do something like that, like a
Yeah.
customer care. इस तरह की जॉब जहाँ पे कुछ सेल्स की कोई
You
इस
know
तरह की
that like helps
एंड
in building character. I
या
feel
cuz
because when you're dealing with a lot of customers and there's like every type of customers, so you like there's just a lot going on and just like you learn so much from that.
yeah. Exactly. And I wanted to do that to like kind of work on my introverted side. See, I wanted to be able to like go up like now that I'm in medicine, it has
Yeah,
kind of naturally gone away because
yeah,
obviously you're still dealing with a lot of people.
yeah,
But and we do also get a lot of entitled patients and
yeah,
messed up people
yeah,
showing up at the ER. But like I wanted to do that for the longest time because that was part of my like, you know, fantastical heroine plan where I was like living
yeah.
independently in abroad, and then I was also doing some kind of like this job,
Part
thingy.
time, yeah.
So part-time job. So this was my K-drama moment that I wanted that I never got because my parents and my family was like, "तुम McDonald में job करोगी? तुम ये करोगी?"
Exactly.
And I was like, oh my God, why do you people make it sound like मैं कोई drugs बेचने जा रही हूँ? Like I'm just gonna be earning halal money, like
Yeah,
working with my own two hands, and how bad could it get? Like I don't mind it as long as it's paying me, cause
yeah,
come on, like who would not want some extra cash? लेकिन उन्होंने इतना ज्यादा instill किया fear मेरे अंदर कि when I went out, plus I could not work on a student visa, so I did
yeah,
not even try. But like
yeah,
मेरी वो ख्वाहिश अधूरी रह गई. So now I'm a doctor. I can't be
yeah.
working at a McDonald's anyways. I don't
But
have
you
the
are
time.
still working in like a
Yeah,
place where you have to deal with a lot of people. So kind of similar, kind of not. But
yeah.
yeah, but I think there's a
It has helped.
there's like this like एक शेर है कि हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले. It's like
Huh.
that. But
Exactly.
we're running out of time, but like I just wanted to ask this quick question for you and then we can come back and do the outro. So quick question
Yeah,
is
sure.
what are you currently watching?
Currently watching, as in drama or
Yeah,
as
anything
in
like
movie.
a show, a movie, what did you recently watch?
Okay, so I'm watching this Chinese drama called You Are My Glory,
Oh,
and it
okay. Is it
stars.
recent?
No, no, it's not recent. I think it came
Okay.
out a while ago. It stars Dilruba, Dilmurat, and Yang Yang. And it's a very like it's a nice feel good type of drama,
Okay.
and the story is really nice because it's very relatable. So basically the show is a little cliche in the sense that they are high school friends, and they kind of I'm really bad at giving like rundowns. So if anybody wants to watch it, please just search You Are My Glory. But what really attracted me about the story was how they're like at a point in life, they're now adults and they have not been in contact for a while. And now the guy was very intelligent and he always wanted to be an aerospace engineer. But now that he's an aerospace engineer, life has been tough and he's realized that he cannot follow his dreams, stuff that he wanted to achieve, even though it's like achievable to him. But circumstances and just real life just does not make it happen the way he wanted to. And the girl, she was not really that good of a student, but now she's a top celebrity and she's earning better than him and she's living a good life. And they kind of like come together, and it's just about how he feels like even if sometimes you have these dreams and you really want to work for them and you put in that effort, but the end result is not something that you want or you suspect or you accept for yourself. So that disappointment, that was so like tangible in the drama, the way Yang Yang portrays that. And I really enjoy it because for me it's very important. What I love doing gives me peace and gives me happiness. And I can't imagine a world where I'm doing something that I love and it's just, not giving me happiness. It's not making me happy anymore. Or that's how he feels. And it's just like a show about that. And I guess there's romance in that as well. It's a very, you know, chick flick sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
It's a
it's
feel
kind of
good.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a feel good drama. So I've been binging that lately.
Okay, love that. Okay, on this note, I would like to conclude the podcast. It was so nice to have you, and I think we can do just so many episodes because initially we decided on talking about something else. लेकिन मैंने कहा था ना बात से बात बन जाएगी, and we just I think
Yeah,
I get to know you a little bit better, much more better actually. And I think you have so many amazing experiences. I would love to have you some other day as well to talk more. And I think there's just so much. I think
we
see,
could talk about it. Yeah.
we could talk about. The audience would
You know,
love
when
to know.
and
So
hopefully, fingers crossed that audience loves us, where they're gonna be like, यार क्या
yeah,
बोलती जा रही है आगे ये
they're like,
बस बोलती जा रही है.
we need more. Imagine people like DMing us. When are you gonna, guys? Are you gonna collab again? Please give us another
I
collab.
hope so. Please, if you like this episode, please let Rabia know that you
Yeah,
love it so that she can have me again here. I would
yeah,
love to be back and talk because I love talking.
yeah, same. And I really appreciate the enthusiasm you show while talking about the things you love. I really appreciate and love that because, like, लोगों में
Thank
नहीं है ये
you.
चीज. So I really, really, really enjoyed this. And you guys, the people who are listening to it, we will have, I think next week I'll have an episode with my intrusive thoughts on my intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
so
don't
we're
know how
doing a
to form this. Yeah,
crossover.
we're doing a crossover. So make sure you guys look forward to that episode as well and follow my intrusive thoughts on Instagram. And she
Thank
uploads
you.
like every Saturday night. So look
Yeah,
forward to
Sunday,
her
yeah.
episodes as well. I love like I because with my work I can listen to podcasts. So I am so excited to listen to your podcast on Monday now because I listen to your podcast on Monday. So yeah,
Aw,
I'll
thank
I'll give
you.
you a review.
I was just listening to your podcast, like the latest episode with your sister. I was just
Yeah.
listening to it, and just because a lot of it was like something that I don't think about because finance and accounting and all this is like
Yeah.
this is a very unfamiliar territory for me.
Yeah.
So I was listening to it. I was like, यार ये मतलब लोग इस तरह की चीजों में भी confuse होते होंगे ना मतलब
Yeah.
obviously I me with my medicine and medical की वो एक train of thought है
Yeah.
वो बस मेरे डैड कहते थे ट्रक की बत्ती के आगे लग जाते हैं कि पीछे लग जाते हैं आगे क्या पीछे पीछे लग जाते हैं और फिर बस चलते जाते हैं चलते जाते हैं चलते जाते हैं because you have a set plan and you have to
Yeah.
follow the same steps everybody has to follow the same steps but like with other fields आपके पास इतनी options होती हैं and
Yeah,
you have
there's
to
a
like
lot.
choose and everything
Yeah.
so it was really refreshing to you know uh listen to that
Yeah.
and get
And I
your
love that we
perspective on
both have
life.
like such different careers that there's just a lot we can talk and we can like share with each other and there's just something new for us to learn. So
Yeah,
really love
definitely.
that. Thank you for coming in. It's 3 a.m. and I loved
Thank you for having me.
and
I thought that I would be sleepy, but I'm just so excited and I'm so awake right now. Like it has been
same,
so much fun talking to you, and I
same.
love that we could do this together. And I hope our
Yeah.
audiences are going to love this as
Yeah,
well.
same. Yeah, same. Ditto. So, see, I'll see you guys very soon, and I'll see Rosie very soon as well. So, like, good
Hopefully.
night, take care, and have a good Sunday.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.